guys, and welcome to the Human Echoes review for The Nice Guys, the new film from Shane Black. I'm Albert. Normally I'm joined by Tony, but today I'm flying solo. Finally, I'll get to get a word in edgewise. That guy never lets me talk, but today, finally I get to have my say. And I just got back from seeing this movie. I've been thinking about this a lot, and I am really of a mixed opinion about this movie. And it's not like I'm sort of meh on the movie as a whole, I'm meh on. But there's some stuff that I really, really liked. And then there's some other aspects that I was just I felt kind of let down by. And it's a weird situation to be in. So I'll start with the stuff that I really liked, because I like to be on a high note. I don't really like to be really super critical. But Shane Black is an incredible writer. And this movie, as much as any of his other movies, really shows that. The guy knows how to do dialogue. He knows how to do story. He has themes that go through this. It's a really great homage to a lot of old classic detective stories. He's on point. I mean, if you probably know of a screenwriter's name, it's Shane Black, and then the dude who did The Social Network, whose name is escaping me right now. But there's like 2 or 3 screenwriters that you're really probably even possibly be aware of as a normal person in normal movie viewing life. And Shane Black deserves to be one of those people. He's one of those guys that's up there in the upper echelon of movie writers and script writers. And in that, he really comes through and shines. If you've seen any of his other films, if you've seen Kiss Kiss Bang Bang, if you've seen Iron Man 3, you know he does this sort of stylized, hyper clever dialogue thing. And he's back at it with that again. There's a lot of great sort of little rabbit trails of dialogue, of things that pop up where you don't expect them. And that's really, really cool. And the story here is really neat. You have these 2 detectives on the trail of this, well, we don't know exactly what it is to start the film off with, and I'm not going to give all these spoilers, but it starts off as a missing persons case. They're chasing down this missing person. It turns into a little bit of something else. There's always this bigger conspiracy. You know, it's a typical detective story, but it's really done well. He brings out these other aspects, and it, because it's set in the 70s, there's something, and this is one of those areas where I'm a little bit two-sided on this, because on the one hand, he beats you over the head with the fact that it's in the 70s, especially at the beginning of the movie. The first shot of the movie is maybe my favorite visual thing in the whole movie, and it's him coming up from behind the Hollywood sign. And the Hollywood sign in the 70s was busted down and broken, and he pans up over Los Angeles. And it's such a great moment because you don't see the whole sign. You don't see all of what it's supposed to be. You almost have to know ahead of time, like, oh, yeah, the Hollywood sign was busted down at the time. That's what it looks like from behind. That's Los Angeles. That's that angle. And it doesn't shove anything in your face, but it's just this great capturing moment of the era. And then he proceeds to throw 80 other different references to the 70s at you to make sure that you know that you're in the 70s. This movie definitely takes place in the 70s. And it's interesting that they have that tone, and the tone is cool. You know, the set design and the cars that they pick and the way that everybody's dressed, it all screams that era. But there's a part of me that wonders how necessary that was, because the story is taking place about these auto manufacturers that are suppressing data about the pollution from their cars, and you know how that there's this conspiracy to cover this up. And I don't know, maybe you can say, well, it's a metaphor and they're still doing it today, and it has greater impact because we know that going back they had all this stuff still happening, and it's still happening today. I could hear that argument, but for me, it almost feels gratuitous. It almost feels like just a reason to go back and have these sort of wacky adventures in this wacky time when everything was, weird and people dressed funny, and wow, weren't they funny back then? I'm a split on that. The movie's designed beautifully around the 70s, but I don't know that we need it. But I'll come down on I'm okay with the 70s. It doesn't hurt the film, even though it is, again, in your face. And I think the in your face thing is maybe one of my biggest problems with this movie, because I mentioned at the beginning that Shane Black is an incredible writer. And he is. He writes great dialogue. He writes great characters. Ryan Gosling, his character, especially with how it unfolds in the movie and what you find out about him. He starts out as someone who you don't really like, but you kind of find things to like him. You sort of come to understand him, and he becomes more sympathetic. And Russell Crowe's character is the same way. However, Shane Black as a writer of dialogue and of characters is good. Shane Black as a writer of scenes and of real people, I think, is maybe less strong. Let's put it this way. Shane Black is a great writer. He's maybe not a really great filmmaker. And I was never able to articulate this before. I know there are a lot of people who really love Kiss Kiss Bang Bang. And I watched Kiss Kiss Bang Bang, and it was so much clever dialogue. And that's great. I mean, clever dialogue is amazing, but everybody had clever dialogue for every line. Every character was just so witty and clever and over the top. And watching this movie, I started to notice that Shane Black doesn't have much of an eye for cinema. He doesn't have a visual style that you're really into. Other than, again, I mentioned the set design and everything is great. He uses the 70s, and the visuals of the 70s are there, but as a cinematographer, I mean, he's not the cinematographer, but, he's in charge of how the camera moves and what it points at. And there are endless scenes of, here's a shot of somebody talking, reverse shot of the other person talking, reverse shot of the first person talking, reverse shot of the other guy talking. And you do that for a scene, and then you go to the next scene, and they do that again. And then you go to the next scene, and they do that again. And you go to the next scene, and maybe there's a little action, and then they talk some more. And they're saying really interesting things. They are, okay? And the plot unfolds in a really interesting way. However, it's a movie. I'm convinced coming out of this that you could be a blind person and enjoy this nearly as much as someone who could see. Because there is almost nothing that happens on the screen that you can't appreciate just through the dialogue. The dialogue's awesome, but almost everything else is a little bit lackluster, which is really disappointing because, again, that first shot going over the Hollywood sign, guys. You go over the Hollywood sign. Hollywood sign is so, I was breathtaking. My breath was taken away. I was just like in the theater like, oh my gosh, that's an amazing shot. How are they doing that? Not the special effects, just I was blown away with the subtlety of the storytelling and like everything that represented and the way the camera moved over the Hollywood sign and the decay that was on display there. And that was it. That was like the last time we got anything near that subtle. There's a moment where somebody leaves something behind and Shane Black has to like do a zoom in on the thing to be like, guys, he left that behind. Guys, are you looking? Did you see the thing he left behind? Guys! Should I have a line there about how he left it behind? Yeah, I'll have a line there about how he left it behind when he gets to the house. Yeah, I'll do that. I feel like he doesn't really trust the audience. And that is my problem with this movie in general, and maybe with Shane Black as a filmmaker. I love him as a scriptwriter, but I don't necessarily love him as a filmmaker. I think he's okay. He's not, it's not some abomination of nature. We're not having Bayhem on the screen, but he's not trying for anything. A lot of it is, just this very standard, boring cinematography, and I would love to see him do more. And I would love, again, there's that clever dialogue, which is a plus to a point, but after that point, everybody starts to sound the same. Everybody has something incredibly witty to say. And it doesn't matter if they're the 13-year-old girl or the grizzled old guy. The only time that he breaks that up is if he has somebody who's using an incredible amount of, man, whatever. He throws in a bunch of slang. He doesn't know how to just write somebody saying something. I don't say he doesn't know how, but he hates it. He doesn't want to. There's a few moments, maybe one of the best moments in the film, where Russell Crowe just kind of slows down and has something to say to Ryan Gosling, and it sort of tells you something about his character. But even that, if he punctuates that with a joke, and there are so many great jokes in this movie, but there are times when you don't want to joke. There's times when you want to have the scene sort of land and have its moments. And I was disappointed in some of that. Again, it's not like I'm not trying to rail against this film and say this film was terrible, but processing how it played for me, I keep thinking that it could have been a little bit more. It could have been just a little bit better. And maybe it's not for me. Maybe because I didn't like Kiss Kiss Bang Bang and I'm not the Shane Black kind of guy, none of these are valid criticisms. I really think if you like Shane Black stuff that he's done in the past, you're gonna love this. I mean, this is more of the same. Maybe not as good as Kiss Kiss Bang Bang, but there really is some great character stuff in here. It does play out in an interesting way. But again, I'm really mixed on this movie. I think that it's worth the price of admission, especially for that 70s feel. There's a lot of cool stuff. It has a lot to say, and it has interesting women characters. Despite the fact that you have two male leads, there's a fascinating thread of the movie in that they get nothing done. The two male leads accomplish almost nothing on purpose. There are accidents, there are sort of just happenstance things that happen, and I think that that's an interesting way to go to show these guys as basically completely ineffectual, bumbling idiots, because it also has some female characters that end up being kind of more competent, even though they don't have the spotlight on them. But I don't know how much of that is on purpose and how much of that is me just trying to put something on the film that may or may not be there. It might just be a comedy of errors. And that's okay if it is. But I wonder how much commentary is there. I like to think that there probably is quite a bit of that being intentional, because as I mentioned, Shane Black, as a writer, definitely has a handle on what he's saying and why he's trying to say it. But as a filmmaker, he's not saying a lot with the film. It's just, I saw a clip recently of Alfred Hitchcock talking about this, talking about radio with pictures. And The Nice Guys is really radio with pictures. And I like radio a lot. And you could do a lot worse radio plays. But as a movie, this one kind of let me down. As a radio play, great, bring it on. But as a film, as something that has a visual component to it, I thought that there could have been more, and there wasn't. I liked it, I processed it, I thought that there was a lot of interesting things to take out of it, but ultimately, it left me feeling a little bit hollow, as do many of Shane Black's other movies. Yeah. I can't recommend it. I can't say you have to go out and see it unless you're a fan of previous movies of his. If you love Kiss Kiss Bang Bang, if you loved Iron Man 3, then you should go see this. But for my money, I think that Shane Black should stick to writing and let someone else direct. Let someone else direct who respects his material and who understands that he needs to leave it intact, but let someone else direct who also understands how to bring it to the next level. Because that's what this movie needed. It could have been to the next level, and it just wasn't. And that's disappointing. Anyway, Thanks so much for watching, you guys. Like and subscribe if you like this video and you want to see more like it. And until next time, I'm Albert Berg.